They went up and slopped the hogs, took care of the cattle, the horses, came back here. After supper, young Johnny O'Connor said, "Where am I going to sleep?" Tom said, "You're going to sleep along with me out here in this little bedroom here." 64-year-old James Donnelly said, "No, laddie, you're going to sleep along with me in my bedroom," which was up here over by this large tree. And after supper, probably around 8:30, Johnny O'Connor, dressed in street clothes. I have a photograph taken of him shortly after the massacre, and by the London Free Press, dressed in the same clothing that he had. It's rather large print, so we'll be able to get a picture of that. Johnny O'Connor in street clothes crawled into the big four-poster bed here, and can remember in his testimony that he remembered a visitor arriving at the house. This was James Feely. He arrived probably around 9 o'clock wearing a heavy coat. And James said to the Donnelly family, said, "I'm going up the road to visit some friends. It's not that cold tonight. Can I leave my heavy coat here and come by on the way home and pick it up?" And they said, "Sure. We'll leave the door unlocked." James Feely noted that 24-year-old Tom was sleeping out here in the bedroom in the kitchen. 59-year-old Johanna rather, was sleeping in this bedroom here, and 21-year-old Bridget was sleeping with her. Now, she was the niece of James Donnelly. They had enough money to bring this girl all the way over from Tipperary. And of course, in this bedroom up here, James Donnelly was sleeping, along with the 15-year-old Johnny O'Connor. Feely asked, "Where is Jack?" Meaning, where is John Donnelly? And he said, "He's not here. He's gone over to Wayland," which is just through the trees over here. It's about 3 miles by the way that the road goes, to stay with William. He went over there to pick up a cutter to come back the next day to take this family to that last court case. Around midnight, the vigilantes left the Cedar Swamp schoolhouse, and we're talking 30 to 35 men. They had clubs, rifle, shotgun. They went north on what is now Highway 23, turned left onto Side Road 20, and came over here to our road, which is the 6th concession. And they came up the road here. They met the Feely fella. He told them where everybody was, and they surrounded the house at shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning. The leader was 28-year-old James Carroll, a man who particularly hated the Donnellys, and he was only a young boy when Pat Farrell was killed, but that doesn't matter. The sins of the father carried on to the sins of the sons. And probably around 20 after 1 in the morning, with 30 to 35 men surrounding the house, James Carroll, who now has got himself appointed a legal constable, he's got a board set of handcuffs. He comes in the back door, he lifts the latch, it is unlocked. He comes in, he lights a lantern or a candle, very quietly goes into this bedroom where Tom is sleeping, wearing long underwear and socks. He very deftly puts the handcuffs on him, jerks on them, and says, "Get up, Donnelly, I've got another charge against you." Now, if Tom hadn't been handcuffed, he probably would have beat the daylights out of Carroll. Johanna hears the commotion. She comes out. She recognizes Carroll as a legal constable, and there's nothing that she can do legally. There's nothing legally she can do. So she goes back, nudges 21-year-old Bridget, her niece, says to her, "Get up, get dressed, tend to the fire in the stove." It was February. Johanna proceeds to help Tom get dressed, even though he is in long underwear and socks, by holding undoing the suspenders of his trousers and holding the trousers for him. Carroll lights a lantern and leaves them here in the kitchen and proceeds to work his way back through into this part of the house. He goes to the doorway opposite the where old Jim is sleeping. He pushes the door open. He hollers in and says, "Old Donnelly, get up." Jim Donnelly awakens. He throws the covers back and covers up young 15-year-old Johnny O'Connor, basically covering him up. He gets out of bed and says, "What do you have against my family this time?" Carol says, "I've got another charge against you. Get dressed." Jim comes out. He doesn't get dressed. Jim comes out and goes out to the kitchen, followed by James Carroll. And he gets out there and he sees Tom in handcuffs. He says, "What, Tom, are you handcuffed?" He says, "Yeah." He thinks he's smart. He says, "Well, read the charge." He said, "Well, there'll be time enough for that. I told you to get dressed." James Donnelly looks around for his coat, his big, heavy greatcoat. He comes back through here. Carol doesn't trust him. Carol follows him. Carol stands here with a lantern. Jim Donnelly goes in and looking for his coat, and Johnny O'Connor suddenly realizes that the coat that old Jim is looking for is rolled up and into a ball, into a pillow under his head. So Johnny O'Connor takes the coat, hands it to Jim, and quietly says, "Here it is." And in his testimony later says he looks out here and he looks Carol right in the eye. We now know that James Carroll could not see him. It was dark in the room. It was light out here. James Carroll was drunk. He was distracted by the girl at the stove and the Johanna helping Tom get dressed out there. The bloodlust was in him. The adrenaline was flowing. But Johnny O'Connor thinks he's been spotted. Old Jim puts his coat on, comes out here, and they proceed to go out into the kitchen. When they get out here, Jim says, "Okay, I'm dressed. Read that charge." At which point, Carol lets a yell out of him, and in the back door comes 20 to 25 men with clubs. They did not take the family outside and tie them to the trees and extract confessions from them. They started swinging their clubs. The first one to go crashing to the floor right by the stove was old Jim Donnelly. He went down right here. Bridget, she ran from the kitchen through the doorway that's here, over here to the doorway that goes upstairs. She goes up, she pulls the door shut, and goes upstairs. Johnny O'Connor now, he got out of bed and got underneath it when the vigilantes came into the kitchen. He runs across the floor here, gets out from underneath the bed, runs across in his bare feet. He's brought up short by the fact that the door is closed. He turns around, runs back, slides underneath the four-poster bed, and waits and hides behind a long wicker dirty clothes basket. A few moments later, although handcuffed, Tom, wearing, by this point now he's got his trousers on, manages to break free from his attackers, and although handcuffed, manages to come through the house here, cursing and swearing, screaming and hollering. He pauses for a moment at the front door. He puts his shoulder to the door. He breaks the door. The top hinge comes undone, and Tom makes it out about 10 feet out, where the vigilantes that are outside rush in from behind and repeatedly stab him in the back. The next day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when the coroner arrives, the coroner discovers large gobs of congealed blood. Tom is eventually picked up, brought in. They close the door to the best of their ability, and they throw him down on this hatchway I told you about, head to the north and feet to the south. And we know this because Johnny O'Connor's testimony later said that he looked out and could see Tom's stockinged feet.